Once again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I am Divya from Relativity Management Solutions India Private Limited. I would like to introduce today's presenter, Mrs. Padma Jyoti. She is leading the team of payroll and taxation at Relativity over 12 years now. She is an enthusiastic human being interested in change initiatives and diversity at work. It's time to start our webinar. Let's start, and over to you, Mrs. Padma.
I'm welcoming everyone to the session for hassle-free issuance of Form 16. We will wait for some more minutes to join other participants, and then we will start the session. Once again, I am welcoming you all for this webinar. In this webinar, we are going to focus on the things which we have to concentrate to ensure that Form 16 is issued to the employees on time and it is accurate. And this webinar, we are also going to speak about what are the items that has to be taken care from the initial, before starting of the filing till end of the filing. And also we are going to discuss about the some leading questions which we are having for the in the last years. So, and we are also going to discuss about the challenges that we are facing in the last year. So let's see about today's agenda. In this, first we are going to see about the Form 16 compliance, why we have to issue the Form 16, when and how it has to be done. So that we are going to see in detail, and also and after that we are going to speak about process and system that has to be implemented, which will ensure that the Form 16 issue is correct. Everyone knows systems will drive the things to be done accurately. So we are going to more concentrate on the process and systems which has to be implemented. And next we are going to tell about what we are doing on this aspect, how we are helping our clients, and what kind of support that we can provide to everyone. And then finally we are having a Q&A session. In the mid of session, if you have any questions, please put it in a chat box. Our team will respond to it, or else we will have a detailed discussion at the end of the session. Okay. So as everyone knows, Form 16 has to be issued for the financial year 21 and 22 before 15th of June 22. Like in the previous years, there was extensions have been provided, but for this financial year till now there was no announcements or any circulars have been given by the CBDT regarding the extensions. And also we are not, as per the industry's things, we are also not expecting any extensions, because in previous years due to COVID the due dates have been extended for 1 or 2 months, 1 month. But this year the extensions is not possible, so we have to issue the Form 16 before 15th of June. If we have been failed to issue the Form 16, then there will be a penalties which will be levied for issue of late issuing of Form 16. So please ensure that you have to complete the filing on 31st May, and the Form 16 has to be issued on or before 15th of June. So as you all know, Form 16 contains various forms like Part A, Part B, and Form 12BA, and Form 12BB, and annexure to Form 16. In this, for Part A, we aware that the details of the deductors and what is the amount that have been paid to the employee, and the value of a TDS deducted from the employee will be mentioned under the Part A. In Part B, we will have a detailed calculation of how the taxes have been calculated and what all the exemptions have been provided to the employee. That will be detailed mentioned in the Form Part B. In Form 12BA, the non-monetary perquisites, what are all non-monetary benefits that have been provided to the employee, and what kind of benefit is that, and what is the value. So those details will be included in the Form 12BA. And annexure to Form 16, which will contains the details of the breakup. For example, in Part A, gross salary only that we will mention, whether it is comes under 17 of 1 or 17 of 2 or 17 of 3. So in 17 of 1, we will have multiple pay heads like basic, HRA, conveyance, like that. Multiple pay heads will be there. So those kind of those details, pay head wise, what and all that we have paid to an employee, that will be mentioned in the annexure to Form 16. So these are the various forms that will include the collective of all these forms only will be considered as a Form 16, and this will have total details of what the income has been paid to that employee for the last financial year, and how their taxes have been calculated, and what is the tax deducted from the employee. So these are the informations which will available in the Form 16. So as per the so now we are going to see about whether we have to issue the Form 16 to all the employees, or whether it is mandatory or non-mandatory. As I mentioned earlier, Part A, we are issuing under the rule of 31 of 1A, and it will contain the details of the employer salary paid and TDS deducted for that financial year. And Part B will have the whole details of whatever the salary that we have been paid, and the exempt and allowances, and how the deductions have been calculated, and what is the tax liability for that particular employee. And Form 12BA will contains the details of the non-monetary benefits or kinds whichever provided by the employer to that particular employee. So in this, which will have the food coupons and the interest-free housing loans and perquisites, everything will comes under Form 12B. And Form 12BB is a statement that is claimed by an employee for the tax exemption. So for example, while the employee declaring his submitting his proofs, he will submit this Form 12BB. So those statements also we have to provide. And annexure to Form 16 is the breakup of Section 17, and it's provided to all the employee as an industry best practice, and it's not recommended or it's not mandated as per the any act. Form 16, next we are going to see about the Form 16 that we are going to issued, to whom it has to be done. We have categorized everything. So under which category of employee, whether we have to issue the Form 16 or not. Employees for whom TDS is deducted. For example, if I'm deducting a TDS for an employee, then it's mandatory for all the employees to issue the Form 16 and all the forms. And if I'm not deducting a tax TDS, and the next case is if I'm not deducting any taxes, while gross salary is greater than the taxable limits, then as per the recommended as a best practice, we have to provide a Form Part A. Because in some companies, they will issue the Form 16 only for the taxable employees, not for all the employees. I just want to know whether what is the practice that you are doing it in your organization, whether you are issuing a Form 16 to all the employees, or you are issuing the Form 16 to one certain only to the taxable employees or to the management level people like that. Can you just put it all answers in the chat box? Okay, Amal Raj have mentioned. Okay, as per the responses I have received, most of the people are issuing for all the employees, and some people it has been issuing for the taxable employees. Okay, for all employees. Okay, but we would recommend to issue the Form 16 to all the employees, because Form 16 is the one is the consolidated statement for the whole year, that what and all the income that employees earned and how much the taxes have been calculated. So we would recommend you to issue the Form 16 for all employees if they have a PAN number. If they doesn't have a PAN number, then we are not able to issue the Form 16 actually. So if the employee has a PAN number, please issue the Form 16. That would be recommend for everyone as a best practice. And as per the act here we have mentioned, okay, In the second one, if you think employees for whom TDS is not deducted where gross salary is greater than the taxable limits, then most of the companies, some organizations will issue only Part B, 12BA and 12BB. But we would recommend Part A has to be issued for those employees because everything has been captured now. And also, I want to mention one thing. This whatever income that the employer is reporting, that will be cross-verified with the individual IT returns. So here, if I'm not reported and if I'm reporting a false income, then employee might receive some notices. So it is better to report all the employees' salary, and it is not mentioned in anywhere in the act that Form 16 has to be issued only for the taxable employees. It is predictable. We are issuing as a general practice, we are issuing to only the taxable employees, but it's better to issue for the all employees with all these forms like Part A, Part B, and Form 12BA and Form 12BB. And annexure to Form 16 is a best practice that we are following it up. We are recommending everyone to do it. And next case will be if an employee doesn't have a PAN number, then it is not possible by us to issue the Form 16 at all. Because, for example, if an employee has Form 16 Part A and Part B, both are generating from the traces. So in traces, if we mention the PAN number only, the certificate will be generated. Otherwise, we will not able to generate the Form 16. So then it is not possible not possible to issue the Form 16 for PAN not available cases. Part A is not possible, but the Part B and other forms you can generate it from your payroll software, and you can issue the same to those employees that they can have it as in a record. So next, we are going to see about how we can generate these different forms and what are the ways are there. So first, Part A, we have to generate it from the traces, and that is mandate actually. We cannot issue Part A that which is generated from the payroll systems. So Part A has to be generated only from the traces that has to be issued to the employee. Part B, from the last 2 years, from traces itself, we can able to download the Part B, which will have most important all of the data, excluding this annexure that we have to provide to an employee. So that is all. That's an optional whether we can generate it from a traces also. If you want to do it from your payroll system, that is also it's possible. You can generate it from your payroll system. That is not mandated as of now. But in future, this also be mandated that Part B also has to be issued from the traces. And Form 12BA, 12BB, and annexure to Form 16, these details will be available only in the payroll system. So from the payroll system, you have to generate these forms and you have to issue to the employee. So next, we are going to see about the different ways of signing the Form 16 and how we are going to issue a Form 16. So in large size of organization, and nowadays in the mid size of employee count, more than 100 plus also, they are having an employee self-service. So most of the organizations are uploading the Form 16 in the employee self-service itself, because from there employee can take out whenever that they required. So that is one of the way. And next one is an email that we have used. If the employees got relieved and he's not in a system, then for those peoples we can issue the Form 16 via email. And finally, it's a manual Form 16, printed Form 16. If there is any technicians who are working in a factory, so for them they will not have an access to email or a ESS portal. So for them we have to take out a printout and we can issue the same. And in signature also, there are two ways that we can do it. One, it's an e-signature, digital signature, and another one is a manual signature. But nowadays, most of the people are preference to do the digital signature, since the time taken and the effort which is taken to sign each and every Form 16 as an individual, it's very huge. So to avoid that, we are doing it in a e-signature, DSC signature. We are affixing a digital signature in the PDF and we are giving to the employees. So that is one of the way that everyone are following now. So these are the things that have been, what is the Form 16, why and when we have to issue. Next, we are going to see about the latest changes and updates. So every year while we are filing the Q4 returns, we might receive some updates from the NSTL, from the RPU. From NSTL, and there will be little changes have been implemented. But for while compared to the last year, this year there is no major changes have been introduced for the existing for the employee category. But there is a new inclusion of annexure for those pensioners. For example, nowadays in the last year budget, it has been introduced for pensioners also. It has to be calculated under the section of 192. Like how we are calculating a tax for an employee, like this pen for pensioners who are receiving a pension from the banks or whatever it is, for them also the bank has to collect some forms and the proofs, then they have to calculate as per the section 192. So for those category of organization, they have to file it as annexure 3. This has been introduced newly for this financial year and from this quarter, and this is mostly applicable for the banks who are issuing the pension, and it's not applicable for all the organizations. So there is no major change while compared to the last years. That the annexure 2 data, whatever that file we are filing for the last year, the same is going to come. The same has to be done for this year also. There is no additional columns or no additional fields required added for this financial year. So this is the one change that have been introduced. And next we are going to see about the details, how the systems and processes, what are the systems and processes we have to follow to ensure that our form 16 is issued on correctly and on time. So I just want to know how you are following it up. Do you have any systems and how we are doing it currently? uh, in the sense I'm asking about, are you have any checklist, or you have any processes that ensure that which will ensure that form 16 issued to the correctly to the employee. If you have anything, please put it on your chat box. I'm also going in to tell about detail what you have to done and how it has to be completed. Okay, we will go in detail. In this system, in this case, systems and processes have split into 3 major categories. One thing which we have to be concentrated before filing the QTS return, and the second item is while we are filing the QTS return, and the third one is after filing the QTS returns, what are the things that we have to be concentrated. So before starting of this activity itself, we have to have a master list of employees to whom we have to issue the form 16. This master list we have to do it cross check with our headcount reports from the April to March, and we have to finalize this list because this is the major item. This is the start for those we have. This is a list of employees to whom we have to issue form 16. This has to be prepared at any cost while I'm starting the activity itself. First thing we have to do is the list of employees to whom we have to issue a form 16. And second one is, if you want to issue a form 16 to all employees, either if the TDS is not there, TDS is not deducted. If you want to issue for those employees, then you have to include them both in the annexure 1 and in annexure 2 also. In 24Q filing, there are 2 annexures will be there. For Q1 to Q3, we are filing only annexure 1, and in Q4, we will do annexure 1 filing and annexure 2. So I will tell you what is the difference between these two. Annexure 1 will contains the details of the amount paid to that employee and the TDS deducted from the employee. For example, if I'm paying 10,000, 50,000 to 50,000 to an ex-employee, and I have deducted 2,500 as TDS. So this is what reported under the annexure 1. And this has to be done on a monthly basis. And in annexure 2, this will have a whole tax computation of that particular employee. How I have derived the gross salary, what is the gross salary of that particular employee, and what are the exemptions that I have been provided under section 10, and what are the deductions that the employee got it under the deduction under section 16, and what are the exemptions that they have claimed for under the chapter 6A. So this will have the whole employee details, whole the tax computation, and it will also have the details of the lender and the landlord of the PAN, like that. So annexure 2 filing will be done only in the Q4. So yearly once we will do annexure 2 filing. You have to ensure the master list of employees, all the employees have been included in the annexure 2. If any employee have missed to include in annexure 2, then we will not get enough form 16 part A from the traces. So we have to ensure all the employees, whether they have included, if we want to issue form 16, they have to include it both in annexure 1 and annexure 2. And also please check whether the gender details, like gender details are not gender details or has to has sorry gender details are matched with the HR records. And also please ensure if the employee is a senior citizen, do you have any senior citizen employee, that specific categorization has to be mentioned in the filing. If the categorization went out in a wrong, then that might be an additional tax liability will be calculated once we file the returns. So while preparing the data itself, please ensure if there are any senior citizens are there, keep an eye on them and make it as a the category has to be mentioned as a senior citizen or like that. And also ensure that the master list of employees who and all is there have been included in annexure 1 and annexure 2 from Q1 to Q4. And also the next item is the gross salary and TDS credit. Whatever that I am mentioning in annexure 1, that has to be matched with the annexure 2 details. For example, in annexure 1, the whole sum of all the annexure 1, if I have mentioned 17,50,000, then in annexure 2, the gross salary should be 17,50,000. It should not be different. And the both has to be matched. Like the same way, tax credit also. In annexure 1 if I have mentioned for all the 12 months the TDS deducted is 2.5 lakhs, then the same has to be mentioned in the annexure 2 also under the TDS deducted by the current employer. So this also you have to match the record. You have to ensure whether it is right or wrong, and then reconcile the data. So before start preparing the Q4 data, reconcile the data whatever that you have filed in Q1, Q2, and Q3 with the payroll data, because sometimes we will do the late adjustments and all. So please reconcile this data and find out if there are any discrepancies is there, then do the necessary corrections and ensure that everything match with the payroll record. So these are the items which we have to concentrated before filing the Q4 returns. So next is, while filing the returns, what and all things that I have to ensure whether filing the returns. So first thing is, while filling up the annexure 2, please ensure whether all the details have mentioned correctly and accurately in the respective columns. And also please check whether you have mentioned the rebate. If the employee have a rebate or relief, something is there, then please ensure whether you have updated in the updated in annexure 2. If it is not updated, then it will not consider for the calculation at all. Okay. And a second thing is previous employer income and TDS. We cannot club with the current employer income. It has to be shown under the separate column. There is a separate column will be mentioned for the previous employer income. So in that you have to mention previous employer income and the TDS deducted by the previous employer income. Okay. And most probably sometimes we will mention the value correctly, but the negative symbol we will miss out to update it. For if there is any loss under section 1024, please ensure you have reported with the negative symbol. If the negative symbol is not there, then it will be considered as an income, and the taxes will be recalculated, and there will be excess. The tax payable will comes after we file the returns. We will receive the demand. And the next thing is tax regime. So here the tax regime is now playing a major key role. If I mention the tax regime wrongly, then after filing the returns, I might receive any demands from the tracers. Then I have to again do the correction filing. So please ensure you have to mention the appropriate tax regime in the right place. Okay. So if to avoid this, what you can do now, first you can fill all the old tax regime details and you can fill the new tax regime people. So you don't have a confusion of mid to mid. So once first you have the details of all the employees who will covers under old tax regime, and second you can fill it as a new tax regime or vice versa, whatever that you feel it is appropriate. And while filing the returns, while filing the returns, please ensure that there should not be any additional tax liability in Annexure 2. For example, there will be one column called shortfall or excess TDS have been shortfall or excess refund. So the shortfall should not come under the positive. It should be in a negative case only every time. So please ensure there should not be any value in positive. So these are the things that has to be concentrated while filing. After filing the returns, while you are preparing the output, you will get in a text file. Please check that file. Whatever data I have been prepared for filing the returns, whether that is matched with the text file, what I'm going to file. So please cross-verify this also, then proceed for the filing. Sometimes there may be a differences in values since we are doing it for a bulk. There may be a differences in values. Please check in the output file what is the output which is came from the system in the text file. So and check on that if everything is went out correct, then take the necessary steps like upload it in NSTL or do it in your login like that. So next thing is we have to concentrate after the filing. So I have done all the things before, what are those steps I have to take in before filing and in filing also. After the filing is completed, once we are giving a Form 16 request, please check whether the Form 16 have been generated for all the employees who have for whom you have, for all the employees who is in the master list. You match with those lists. If the any employee has got missed it out, and get into deep whether you have filed both the annexures. So if both the annexures have been filed, then generally the Form 16 will be generated. Otherwise, the PAN number will not be PAN number may be incorrect. So please check on that and ensure whether all the employees got on a Form 16. And then reconcile the Form 16 data with payroll data. In Form 16, whatever data that I am going to file in the filing in the QTS returns, that is what going to be reflect. So whenever we are doing a reconcile, do with the master source of data. Here, the master source of data will be a payroll data. So whatever details that is available in the Form 16 has to be checked with the details which are available in the payroll system. It has to be matched. So it has to be matched. First thing that we will match is amount of payment and TDS, and also please ensure whether all the fields are getting matched, because sometimes we may miss out one or two fields that comes in the Form 16 also. So please ensure you have to match all the fields that is mentioned in Annexure 2. And the same thing, amount of payment and TDS deducted will have a little more concentration, because that is the main that is the first value that employee will see. So this is very important to be concentrated. In this reconciliation, if you find out any discrepancy, then take the necessary corrections that has to be done. So if you follow these steps, then you will be on track, and you might know about to minimize the error, and you can able to issue the Form 16 with 100% accurate and in the on time to all employees. I also want to mention some challenges that we have faced in the past year. For filing the returns, we are having a due date until 31st of May. Don't push the filing until to 31st of May, because whatever the returns that you are filing after certain days, traces will take huge time to process it. For example, if I'm filing any returns on 10th of May, it will get processed on 14th or 14th by maximum. But if I'm filing any returns at the time of 28th or 29th, then it will take nearly 1 week, 1 week for us to traces process the return. It will take huge time, because everyone are filing the returns in the last moment and in the due date. So I would recommend you to file the returns before 25th or 24th itself, so that you can the corrections whatever that you want, you will have enough time. This return has to be processed, and you have to do all the reconciliations, and if you found any discrepancies, then you have to undertake the corrections. So then you will have a huge time to do it, and you can issue the Form 16 on time. Don't postpone it to until 31st May. Please do the filings before 25th itself. Then only we can able to issue on time without any hindrances, because without any last minute rush up, we can do it. And if we found out if there is any correction has to be done by preparing the data, please do it in parallel itself. For that also, don't wait for until the last moment, because in the last year, for our clients, we know the filing that we have filed on 27th or 28th, it get processed on 5th or 6th of the June. So when after we are doing a reconciliation of payroll data with everything, the form 16, and we have to find out for corrections. There are some mismatches are there. If there any correction has to be taken, and if we are doing, then tracers have not processed any correction return for certain number of days. They have just stopped to process all the correction returns. So for until 10th, it has been they have stopped it, and it will be in the pending for processing status only for for 4 to 5 days. After that only it get processed. So don't take it for the last minute. Please do it. Please plan it and do it prior itself for the filing. So, and there was one question will be there, why I have to do audit between a part A and part B before I am ensuring, before issuing the form 16. So this audit we are recommending you to ensure whether the data which is mentioned in part A and part B is matched. The both should be aligned, because these are the two different parts, but this will comes under the same form 16. I cannot mention some value in part A and another value in part B. So to ensure that, we require you to undertake the part A and part B audit before issuance of form 16. And another objective is to ensure all employees get form 16 accurately. So please take this as an additional thing and do it before issuing the form 16. When whatever data that I'm getting it from traces, just convert it and issuing the form 16, it's not the case. Please ensure you have to take care of audit and then issue the form 16 to an employee. So next we are going to see about, there are multiple questions that is there with everyone. Still we have multiple answers, but everyone will have these questions, like how to handle the entity transfer cases, is it mandatory for me to report the previous employer income, like this. We are going to check these cases individually. So first thing is number of form 16s to be issued for the entity transfer employees. For example, in the same group, from one entity to another entity, we are transferring the employees. In this case, how many form 16s that we have to issue? Can you put your response in the chat box so that I can able to see it? Okay, I have received a response two, and someone has been mentioned as one set in each entity. Actually, one set for each entity is the right one, because here what will happen, no? So as per the section 203, it's a responsibility of a deductor to issue a form 16 for the previous years to an employee. In Act, deductor will be identified based upon the TAN number. Here we will not consider it as a group. It is based on the TAN number. So for each TAN number, we have to issue a form 16. So if I have, for this entity transfer cases, if I have been transferred from one employee to three different TAN numbers, he is under the same group, but for 4 months he have been working for for an entity which is comes under different TAN, and 4 months it's for a different TAN, and 4 months for a different TAN. Then we have to issue 3 form 16 to this employee for one set from each TAN number. So this will be categorized for the TAN number cases. So how many TAN numbers that we are having, and in this which period that employees comes, for every period we have to issue a separate form 16. And the next question is it mandatory to report previous employer income in form 16? So can you just put up your responses in chat box what you are practicing it currently? Okay. Okay, I have got different types of response. Some people have mentioned that we are not reporting, we are not considering the previous employer income, and some people have mentioned that we are reporting previous employer income. But as per the best practice, it is recommended to consider the same. We have to consider the previous employer income if the employee have provided those informations to an employer, because at the end of the year, this will be a if employee have to have moved from one entity to one company to another company, and if we doesn't plug these income, their taxes, while filing the returns, he might have to pay some additional taxes. So it's better to consider the same. Employer have to consider the previous employer income if employee submits the same to the employer, and it has to be reported in the form 16 also. That is what the act says. If employee doesn't report the same, because we doesn't know whether the employee what the income that he earned in the previous organization, and what whether he worked or not, that we are not unaware of it. So whatever the details that employee provides you, that you have to consider for the tax computations, and the same has to be reported in form 16. But the initiation from the employer should be there. We have to, while collecting the investment proofs, or while the employees have been joining at the time of investment declaration also, we have to ask the employee to submit the previous employer details. If employee submits, then we have to consider it. And if employee doesn't submit, then it's not required for us. Then the government will not ask any question to us, because we are not, there is no from any other source, we don't get any information for that. So it's up to an employee. If they have submitted, then you have to consider it. Otherwise, it's not required to be considered. So if employee declares the same, then employer has to report the same in filing. Here, what amount that I have to report? That is the next question, because if I'm considering the whether I have to report the gross salary which have been mentioned in the previous employer, or income after the section of 10, or the taxable income which have been included in the previous, which have been mentioned in the previous employer's tax computation. So we have to mention the income which is after the exemption of section 10, and tax on employment, and entertainment tax. These three things we have to list, and then we have to report it into the previous employer income. This is the income that has to be reported under reported in the previous employer section in QTDS filing. And most of us, we have many doubts whether we have to match part A and part B is mandatory. So I just want to know your responses, what you have been thought. Whether it is mandatory to match part A and part B. Okay, I got a response, both responses, no and yes, and someone have mentioned maybe supposed like that. So let's see what is the right thing and what is the best thing that we have to do it. So here, for example, okay, here I have mentioned the different cases. So some employers will match the amount of payment which is mentioned in part A with the gross salary which is mentioned in part B. This is one case. And the next case is they will match the amount of payment with the gross salary under the section 17 of 1. They will not match the whole total. That is the second case. And third one is amount of payment mentioned in part A, that they will match with the income after section 10 allowance. So they will match with income after section 10 allowance. And some organizations will match the same with income chargeable under the head salaries. And another case will be a taxable income. They will match the amount of payment to the taxable income in part B. Which one is the valid one? Valid one is amount of payment mentioned in part A has to be matched with the gross salary total. This both has to be matched. This is what has to be matched. And the act also say the same thing. The employer should quote the gross amount of salary, including any amount exempt under section 10, deductions under chapter 6A, In column 321, it clearly says that the employer should mention the gross salary. It is not about the it's not about mentioning after section 10 after the taxable income like that. It clearly says whatever the gross amount of salary that we are paying to an employee before exempting the section 10, including the section 10 exemption value and the deductions whatever that employee is getting under chapter 6A also has to be included, and that has to be reported under the filing in amount of payment or credited of annexure 1 column. So it's clearly says the importance of matching part A and part B. Part A has to be matched with part B, and the value will be gross salary of part B has to be matched with the amount of payment credit which is there in the part A. And the next question will be, should we report non-taxable reimbursement? If yes, where we have to report? What is the practice that you people are doing? Can you put your response on the chat box? Okay. Yes. Got it. Okay. I have received responses like yes. So non-taxable reimbursements. So as we have seen in the previous screen, right? The gross amount of payment that has to be reported under the reported in annexure 1, which is the gross salary, including of section 10 exemptions. It has not mentioned about the non-taxable reimbursements, because reimbursements itself, whatever the expenses that I have made on behalf of the company, and I'm getting the amount from that company. So that is what the reimbursement says. So the non-taxable reimbursements, whatever that employee is getting, that is not required to report in the filing, and it's not an income at all. Then it's not required to report it anywhere. So it's not required. Should we report? No, we don't want to report anything. So only we have to report is basic taxable allowance and section 10 allowances, exempt, including exemption value and taxable reimbursements. These are the values that has to be reported under the annexure 1. So I think this will have a better clarity for you. If reimbursements which are not taxed or paid to an employee, they can't be included on the form 16 part A or part B. As I said, this is not an income at all. This is what the expenses that I have made to do some official work that has been taken from the premises. For that, they are getting back the amount from the company. So if that's not an income, then it's not required to report it anywhere. So here some of the reimbursements are there. One will be car lease and fuel reimbursements, data card and mobile. These are some of the examples that we have quoted for the non-taxable reimbursements. And next section. Okay, next is the interesting question. Gross salary mentioned in part A and part B has to be matched. Else individual will receive notice. What should you do? If the gross salary that we are mentioning in part A and part B is not matched, there might cases the employee will receive a notice. They will receive notice, and what are the steps that you have to take care? That is what we are going to detail. So before we are going into detail, we just want to know what the individual has to report in their filing. So based on that only, we have to check how it will helps. For if you see here in the gross total income column, employee has to include report all the salaries and allowances which are exempted and non-exempted, along with the details of work visits. So this is the breakup that individual will file in their returns. If the breakup, whatever that they are mentioning here, and what you have filed in annexure 1, annexure 2, if both have the difference, for example, department will not take care of if you are reporting excess income. They will not concentrate on the excess income because that is an additional income for there, and they will calculate additional taxes on that. So if we are reporting a less income, for example, in annexure 2 of a filing, employer have mentioned that this individual have earned the gross salary is 50 lakhs. But the individual here, the breakup, if they are filing for 40 lakhs, then he will definitely get a notice that there is a difference between the details that have been provided by your employer and you. Then employee doesn't know what they have to do, then they have to come back to you. So it is required, they will come back to you. So in that case, you have to check the salary, that whatever that employee has mentioned in the filing, whether that it is aligned with the form 16. If they have claimed excess exemptions or whatever it is, then they have to check with the tax consultant, and they have to provide the necessary proofs. If the annexure 2 data is wrong, then we have to revise the annexure 2 data and issue the revised form 16 to that employee. And also, we are recommending to provide the breakup of section 10 allowance and annexure to form 16, since these details have been, it's mandatory for the employee to update in their individual tax returns. So if an intimation received by the employee, if you see, this is what the error description that they will have. If I'm reporting less, for example, in this case, if you see the income as per the tax return is less than the amount paid or credited as from the form 26 AS. There is a less income have been reported, so they are getting the error description like this. This is how the notice will come to an employee. If the error description is like this, then we have to check whether annexure 2 data is correct, and if everything is correct, employee have done some mistakes or some miscalculations in filing, then they have to revise their IT returns. In sometimes in last year, we have faced a lot of challenges in employee while filing their IT returns, because in part A we have provided the tax credit and it is reflecting in their 26 AS also. But the value, we know, right, in ITR 1, the value automatically filled from the 26 AS and it will reflect. The data will be automatically pulled from the traces and it will taken it for the IT filing. There, the value will be less. For example, 1,25,000 is a TDS that have been mentioned in part A, but the TDS, whatever that coming in the screen will be less. It will be 75,000, something like that. So these are the glitches that we have it in the last year, but hope these will not continue for this year also, because at the end of the last year financial year itself, these glitches have been reduced. So there might be a cases part there will be differences in the value. So that also we have to educate to the employee. So from the employer point of view, whatever the value that we have mentioned in the part A, if that value has reflected in the form 26 AS, then that is where the employer have a control to change the data. Whether it has been considered in the filing or whatever it is, the employer doesn't have any control over there. So for those kind of issues, they have contact to the IT department or the CPC cell, and they have to raise a query there only. Okay. Sometimes for some people, we have seen the wrong intimation has been shared. So we have to ensure whether everything is correct and send a response to the employee that everything is, we have, as per your tax computation, we have filed it and the same value has been reflected in your form 16. And the same you have also mentioned. If still the notice is there, then please check with your tax officer. Like that, we can reply to that employee. So next we are going to see about the tools for form 16 generation and issuance. So what all the tools currently is available? This is best practice what everybody is doing in industry. So most of people will have a Excel based utility, and some people will have a web based utility, and some people will use application based utility also to generate the form 16s. These are the various ways that everyone are generating the form 16s. And here I just want to tell what we are doing in this activity. Actually, we are taking care of for large companies or who are in size, mid-size, or everyone. We are doing the QTDS filing, and we are ensuring that all the reportings have been done properly. And we will ensure what is the credit that have been provided to an employee has went out, and it's reflecting in the form 16 also. And after filing the returns, we are also taking care of the forms distribution activity as a separate. We will join the part A and part B as per your requirement, and we will put a digital signature. If you want to send an email to your employees, that also we will do. And also, if you want to upload it in ESS in your internal employee self-service portal, for that also we are providing our help. We are doing those kind of service. If anyone interested in that, please reach out to us. So our team will get back to you in this case. So this is how our thing will work. So first, what we will do, this is 3 steps, 3 clicks that we will do. First, we will join part A and part B. If we want password, then we will protect it as a password, and we will affix the digital signature, and we will send out a bulk email as per your requirement. If you want to send a bulk email, that we will do it, or we will upload it in your self-service portal. Currently, we are running a poll regarding this requirement. Please submit your response on this. Can you submit the poll responses? This will have this just in a feedback thing, how you have been in the session without, and if you required any support from us for better understanding. Okay, thank you for the response. So before going into Q&A sessions, I just want to tell you about some facts, what relativity is and how we are working on it. And Relativity is a 13 years AIM company, and we are having 153 clients across all the country plus, and we are processing around 12 lakhs transactions per quarterly, and our accuracy rate is which is 99.49 percentage, and we are presently there at 16 cities. And also in the past year, we have issued 500,000 Form 16s. And this year also, we are going to issue the same count. It's more than that. If you want any support from us on the below items like payroll, taxation, compliance, or accounting, please reach out to us. Please write to us. Then we will. We are the compliance experts. We will do necessary things. These are the services that we are providing to everyone. If you have any requirement in futures, please let us know. We will support you also. Next, we will go into Q&A session. So I will take out the questions which are there in the chat. I think my team have already responded for certain number of queries. Just a minute. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat box. Or if you want to discuss, please let us raise your hand. We will unmute yourself and we will discuss in detail. Someone have mentioned about, so we can receive Form 16 for pensioners. Yeah, from this year onwards, we are going to issue a Form 16 and pensioners will receive the Form 16 also. I've downloaded the sample Form 16 in Google and follow you. Will freelancers and professionals will have a tedious deductions? Only should also be getting the Form 16. Freelancers and professionals will not be considered as an employees. Only the employee will receive a Form 16. The service between employer and employee. Employee one will receive the form 16, the others will receive a form 16A, which is in quarterly ones that they will receive. Okay.
Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, in for the quarterly filing the returns, we have to fill the only for who deducted the tax only, but zero value for the tax deduction is applicable. They should system will allow because I'm not filed for nil persons. We have 10 or 20 employees means we can deduct only for 10 employees. Other employees' salary we are not able to shown in the quarterly returns, na.
In quarterly returns, you can show it, but in the tax deducted date column is there, right? That you have not to be mentioned. It is includable. We can show those kind of entries also.
Zero also is possible tax deducted in the
Yeah,
column.
zero also it is possible.
Salary paid
Yeah.
10,000, tax is zero. Zero row is
Yes.
zero value for tax is allowing for quarterly returns.
Yeah, if system will allow that in quarterly returns, we can add the zero taxable employees also there.
Okay, okay.
Important to show. And we have some question here. According to the IT Act, employee who's paying rent more than 15K, then he or she should deduct 5% of tax on that, then pay to the landlord. But in case employee is not doing the same, will this impact any employer? Okay, I have received this question from Dhirendra. Actually, if whatever thing that employee is supposed to do, that has to be taken care by the employee itself. Employer have any responsibility on that. There will not be any impact in that case. So that whatever the impact will be there, that employee has to face it independently. Will gratuity be a taxable income? It's a good question. Actually, under the gratuity will be exempted for certain cases, not for all the cases. So we have to include as a income, and the same exemption will be provided under the section 10. So we have to gratuity the amount water. For example, if I'm paying 15 lakhs to that employee, then 15 lakhs has to be reported in the filing, and it has to be included in the tax calculation also under section 17 of 1. And we will have, and the exemption for that gratuity will be provided under the section 10. So we have to include that. It's a taxable. It's a partial taxable component. Based upon the conditions, the tax calculation will be happen. Statutory bonus, which can be paid up to filing of the IT return of company, is generally paid in the next financial year after calculating the profit of company. My question is, if a company pays bonus for FY 21-22 in FY 22-23, it will be added to the income of employee or some other entity instituted. Actually, whatever that you have mentioned is correct. It has to be included in the financial year 22-23 only, because as per the Income Tax Act, whatever the income is accrued or earned, which has to be considered for that in that financial year. In this case, if you are seeing the income will be accrued in after filing the company returns, then we will derive the profit. Then only we can able to do the bonus calculation. So we can't predict the same in March 31st itself. So while making a payment, so accrued will not be possible in this case. So while making the payment, the amount will be considered for the taxable in the next financial year, in which year I am paying the amount to that employee. Any payment is in current financial form, part of same year, doesn't matter. Yes, and I had a question from Mr. Anurag. Any payment received in current financial year will form part of same year. Doesn't matter if it is paid for last year or so. It's correct. Whatever the payment have been received for this current financial year, that will be included in this financial year only, and it will not be considered whether it has been included for the last year or not. And in certain cases, this will reversely work. For example, in March month salary, if I'm processing a March month salary and I have holded the salary because the employees, the absence of the employee is not reported in the proper manner. So I'm not sure whether the employee will continue or not. So I have hold his salary in the month of March. and the same salary I have released, and the employee also came in the April and he reported. If I'm releasing this salary in the April month, then this income has to be considered in the last financial year only, because as per the act, employer can stop only the bank transfers. So we cannot, and all other statutory obligations will be considered for the same month. So the taxable for that March month salary will be considered in the previous financial year only, not on the paid month. If that is the case, if the salary itself have been hold, then it has to be considered in the last financial year, whether it is paid on, whether it will not be considered for which year I am paying. It will be based upon the accrual, in which month wage we are going to consider. How interest calculating for late filing and late payment. Okay, for late filing, the due date will be 31st May. So if I am filing it as a late, for every day 200 rupees penalty will be charged, and the maximum amount will be the TDS deducted for the particular quarter. So if my TDS deducted is 5,000, and if I'm delaying it for 30 days, then the maximum late filing penalty will be rupees 5,000 only. And the late payment will be, even if there is a delay in a 1 day, 1.5% per month will be considered for the late payment interest computation. Late payment interest will be calculated. Tina J requested for a session on statutory bonus also. I will take it out as a note. I will let my team know. So if there is any session, if we are going to plan it out, we will let you know on this, Tina. Outstanding of employees' loans and advances as on 31st March considered as a taxable amount. Loans will not be considered as a taxable amount, because loans and advances that we have been provided for certain reasons, right? Loan is a different, salary advance is a different. So outstanding loan, whatever that we are having, that will not be considered as a taxable. That is anyway the employee is going to repay to the employer, right? So we can't tax it as for the last financial year, and it's not, tax will not be applicable. An authorized signatory signing Form 16 for all employees has his own signature on his Form 16. What is the industry practice? Okay, actually, here the authorized signatory is for not for that particular employee. For example, if a person is there and if he is authorized to sign all the Form 16s of that company organization, then for that individual also, he is only the authorized signatory. There should not be any, there should not require any other authorized signatory to sign the Form 16. As per the position, he is the only eligible, he is the only one who can sign all the Form 16s for that financial year for that organization. And if you see, he will also comes under as an employee category. So that's not required that authorized signatory Form 16 should be signed by another person. That's not required, because this position itself have been provided to authorized to sign all employees Form 16, and he is also one of the employee for that organization. Any notional interest to be deducted for loans and advances. Any notional interest, for example, if we are providing interest-free loans, for example, if you are not collecting any interest from the loans, that whatever that you have paid, then it will be considered under the interest-free loans. So for if an employee is going and taking a personal loan from the outside the bank, for example, if he is taking a loan from the SBI bank, then he is supposed to pay any or certain interest, right? 12% or 13% interest that he has to pay it. But since we are giving it in a company, and we are also giving it in 0% of loan, 0% of interest. So the difference of this interest will be considered as a benefit. This is a benefit that employer is providing to the particular employee. Then it will be considered as a perquisite, and there are certain methodology are there to calculate the taxability of that perquisite value. How we have to derive the interest value for those interest-free loans, or the interest concession loans also. Some companies will provide at the lower rate of interest for 8%, 6%, and all they will provide. So we have to take as per the SBI lending rate, and what are the different percentage that we have been less providing, that will be considered as a non-monetary benefit, and that amount will be taxable. There is no rules it's available to provide loan with an interest. It's up to the company policy. Some company wants to give it in a 0% of interest because they are doing better for they just want to do it something for their employees. It's up to the company policy whether to have a interest or no interest free loans or in concessional rate of interest. And is anybody have any other questions? There are only actually, sorry, already the time is overshot on 5 minutes. If you have any questions, please let us know. Please let me know so that I can answer it out, and can we move on to the next. And I will also, there is a YouTube channel that we are having, and in that YouTube channel, there are multiple videos that we are providing us on the changes and what are the right things have been done. Please subscribe to it. And there is a blog also. Divya already have provided a link in the chat box. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and blog. And thank you for your support. If you still have your questions, please write back to us. If any unanswered questions also will be answered. In case of any doubts related to us, please write it to hello@relativity.co.in. Our team will there to help you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.